Hi, I'm Devin Kurtz, the Executive Director of the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. And thanks for joining us today as we celebrate the 104th birthday of the National Park Service. Today, I've used the corridor's very own DeLorean fruit crate scooter to travel back in time to 1916, because it was on this day, August 25th, 1916, that President Woodrow Wilson signed into law the act creating the National Park Service. The creation of the National Park Service unified under one department all of the federal parks and memorials, and it would further the preservation of these lands for future generations. I'm reminded of those first words of our first director of the Park Service, Stephen Mather, and he wrote, "These parks do not belong to one state or one section. Yosemite, the Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon, these are national properties in which every citizen has a vested interest. They belong as much to the man of Massachusetts, of Michigan, of Florida, as they do to the people of California, of Wyoming, of Arizona. Who will gainsay that the parks contain the highest potentials of national pride, national contentment, and national health? A visit inspires a love of country, begets contentment, engenders pride of possession, and contains the antidote for national restlessness. Here is a better citizen with a keener appreciation of living here, those who have toured our national parks. And what an amazing resource all 419 national parks make up. But here in the Blackstone River Valley, we are doubly lucky, because back in 1986, Congress created the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. We were the second of now 55 national heritage areas nationwide. And within our corridor, we are made up of 25 cities and towns. We're made up of the Blackstone River and the remnants of the Blackstone Canal. And our job is to help preserve this living landscape of our past, to tell the story, that enduring legacy of innovation and industry of the start of the American Industrial Revolution. But our story doesn't end there, because in 2014, we helped to create the Blackstone River Valley National Historical Park. So within our boundaries, we have a historical park that's highlighting 5 key features that all tell that same story. But now the partnership between these two organizations can tell a complete story of the birth of the American Industrial Revolution, but also bring us right up to the president to talk about what's happening in the Blackstone River Valley today. We tell the story. We put volunteers out within our communities. We lead tours and programs. We form partnerships with other nonprofits, museums and historical societies, science centers, and natural sanctuaries. And of course, we can't put aside our great children's programming with Gearheads, which is our very own National Park Junior Ranger program. President Franklin D. Roosevelt wrote that there is nothing so American as our national parks. The fundamental idea behind these parks is that this country belongs to the people. That is in the process of making for the enrichment of all of our lives. So again, I want to thank you for joining us on this, our Founders Day. But before I ride back to 2020, I do want to share a couple words of the Chief Historian of the National Park Service. And his words from 1990 still resonate today, especially given all of the challenges that we as a nation must face. Edwin Beers writes, "As we Americans celebrate our diversity, so we must affirm our unity if we are to remain the one nation to which we all pledge allegiance. Such great symbols and meccas as the Liberty Bell, the battlefields on which our independence was won, the Lincoln Memorial, the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Yosemite, and numerous other treasures of our national park system belong to all of us, both legally and spiritually. These tangible evidences of our cultural and natural heritage help make us all American. So now I'm going to get on my scooter and ride up to 2020, and I want you all to remember our Junior Ranger motto. Come with us as we explore nature, discover history, protect our environment, and go on adventures in the Blackstone River Valley. Happy birthday, National Park Service.
Hello, and welcome to our virtual celebration of the National Park Service's Founders Day. I am Eric Breitkreutz, and I have the privilege of serving as superintendent of Blackstone River Valley National Historical Park, running in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and of Roger Williams National Memorial in Providence, Rhode Island. To you today from the Captain Wilbur Kelly House. He built this house in 1835 in the strategic location between the Blackstone River and the Blackstone River Canal, and it's an important part of our story here in the Blackstone River Valley.
A Blackstone Valley Sampler. Reflections from the Captain Wilbur Kelly House in Lincoln, Rhode Island. Tulips and daffodils, a splash of color that weaves across the landscape. Tractor and sycamore, both older than memories of days gone past, when perhaps the tractor plowed the ground beneath the sapling, when farms rolled along the river with cows and sheep, corns, beans, and squash, a much simpler time, so they say. Labors of man, woman, and beast was all they had to sustain life in the valley until machines and factories, planted side by side, swallowed up the hours. The clock ticks on, the bells ring, morning, noon, and night. To hear birds sing was such a delight. To lay one's head upon a pillow, rest for the weary, divine. To awake each morning, a blessing. Now birds return to sing, robin and cardinal welcome spring. The bell is silent except for praise, a piece of history we revere in art and song. We work hard to make a living, but we live for tulips and daffodils, a splash of color that weaves across the landscape.
Hello, I'm Mark Mello, and I'm a park ranger with Blackstone River Valley National Historical Park. And I'm here at Blackstone River State Park, and that is the Kelly House Museum of Transportation right behind me. This site has an awesome history, the story of the development from an agricultural area to that of an industrial one. And here at this museum, it tells the story of transportation and the revolution that happened with transportation over the years. And so now I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories about this location, the story of the Blackstone Canal. I'm now standing by the Blackstone Canal. Built between 1825 and 1828, the Blackstone Canal served as a major means of transportation here in the valley for 20 years. Today, the Blackstone Canal offers great recreational opportunities such as fishing, kayaking, and canoeing. Oftentimes in the valley, we talk about the transition from farm to factory, when in fact, the farm never went away. Here is a great example of that. Behind me, you can see the old reconstructed milk shed that was here, and this part of the Kelly House property served as a farm throughout all that time. Today, the bike path runs through this portion of the property, and it's a great place to bring out your bike or go for a walk. Just a short walk across the Blackstone River from the state park is the village of Ashland. This remains one of the best preserved mill villages in the valley, and it's a great example of the development of a mill village over time. What we see here is the new mill built alongside the railroad, a much larger brick mill, brick workers' housing, a school, a church, managers' housing, and a store. Thank you for joining us for this 104th celebration of the National Park Service. Now I would like to hand it over to Devin Kurtz, Executive Director of the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor.
Hi, welcome to Whitesville, Massachusetts. We're here in the town of Northbridge today as we continue our celebration of the National Park Service 104th birthday. The village of Whitesville within this town was first formed in the early 1800s when the Whiten family moved here and built a cotton mill. They soon expanded into several more textile mills, but then they built the Whiten Machine Works, which is situated behind me, where they made all of the substances that went into creating a textile mill. So all of that machinery that you don't think about when you're putting on your shirt that's been made on a loom. The Whiten family not only built the mills, not only dammed the rivers and created mill ponds for power for the mills, but they also built the housing for their mill workers. They contributed to the stores in the town, to the building of schools, the meeting houses or churches, the town hall, recreation facilities, and even a company store to sell products to their workers. In fact, over the almost 100-year history of the Whiten Mills, over 1,000 residences were built here in the community. When you visit Whitensville today, you'll see not just their factory buildings, not just the mill ponds and rivers, you'll see all of the housing and neighborhoods that were created by the Whiten family. Today, although the Whitens are no longer manufacturing here, the buildings themselves are used by other manufacturers, other factories, but also a lot of creative reuse of these buildings has happened, from education facilities and social services to housing. It's another part of what is strong here in the Blackstone River Valley. Even when a lot of the huge industries left, we were able to reuse the buildings and the landscape to continue on. If you want to explore more here in Whitensville, you can sign up for one of the ranger-led tours or volunteer-led tours that happen throughout the year, kayak on the Mumford River, or if you want to go on your own, visit the National Heritage Corridor's website and download a copy of a walking tour. In fact, these walking tours exist for all 25 cities and towns in the Heritage Corridor. So as you're exploring both the Heritage Corridor and the new Blackstone River Historical Park, you can get some background information and know what you're looking at as you go off and explore. Again, happy birthday to the National Park Service, and be sure to come visit us.
The birthday celebration continues here in Hopedale, Mass. Hi, I'm Sue Charmickley. I'm a volunteer in the Volunteer Parks program, and I am also the volunteer curator of the Little Red Shop Museum here in Hopedale. Hopedale is one of the 6 nodes of the Blackstone River Valley National Historical Park that was signed into legislation back in December 2014. In order to become a part of that new model of National Historical Park, there were 2 things we were asked to do. One was to establish at least one local historic district, and the other was for the town to sign a general agreement with the National Park Service. I am happy to say that we have accomplished both of those things. And it is for the love and passion of the history of this town that we, the volunteers, are able to keep this building up and running. And we're able to share the history of Hopedale in that way. Hopedale is considered to be instrumental in the industrialization of America. Not responsible for the Industrial Revolution, but for becoming an important part of the industrialization of the country. The reason for that is Hopedale is known for building looms. They started building looms rather than just loom carts in the middle 1800s. And over a period of 8 years, they worked to develop and produce an automatic loom. By 1900, they became the leading manufacturer of cotton looms in the world. What does that mean? Why was that significant? That's because it changed the way Americans lived. It once was that Americans, the people in this area, they survived by agriculture and by having looms, especially automatic looms. Textile mills were built. so people could go to the mills, work for the mills, and earn a living in that way. That allowed them to buy goods and services that were different. Goods and services that they did not have to manufacture themselves. And that progressed across the nation over the decades, well into the 20th century. It's an honor for Hopedale to be part of this story, this national story, and yes, this birthday celebration. We thank the National Park for supporting us and including us in this story. We wish the National Park Service a very happy birthday, 104 years old. Now this celebration continues. Here we go.
Good day, everyone. Bob Billington here. I'm the director of the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council and a longtime commission member on the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor Commission, now a member of the new nonprofit group. The Heritage Corridor Commission was formed in 1986 under a law signed into being by President Reagan, but led by names like Senator Claiborne Pell, Senator Ted Kennedy, Senator John Chafee, all leaders on the national scene here in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and the people that really allowed us to create a National Heritage Corridor. In 1988, in May, in this building here, Slater Mill Historic Site in Pawtucket, 19 members were sworn into being by the National Park Service, and they were commissioned to create a cultural heritage and land management plan for the National Heritage Corridor, which ranged from Worcester to Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Following that came the beginnings and the thoughts about a national park. So in 2014, the Blackstone River Valley National Historical Park was signed into law by President Obama. So lots of us here in the Blackstone Valley have been working for decades, starting in the 1930s with concepts about a park along the Blackstone River, and then the 1970s about thoughts about a bikeway along the Blackstone River and Park, and then the beginnings of the actual state park, which is now going to be a national park. So the history of the Blackstone River Valley goes back a long, long way, where we tried to make it a little bit more enjoyable, because obviously the Blackstone Valley is all about work. This is where work took place. This is where democracy started. This is where the industrialization of our country began and brought us to the superpower status that we are today. But the idea of preserving history and culture and that story and the environment really started in the past 30 years with the Blackstone River Valley National Historical Corridor. I am now going to be sending this shuttle on its way to Worcester, Massachusetts. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Williams. I'm on the board of directors of the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor, and I have been involved with the Heritage Corridor since 1996, originally as a commissioner. And perhaps you know that the Heritage Corridor is a designation of the National Park Service. So since 1986, this whole area has been designated a National Heritage Corridor. We were the second to be so designated in the country, and now there are over 50 heritage areas or corridors. So the Heritage Corridor has been so instrumental in those 34 years, and will go into the future too, in really creating a wonderful sense of place of the Blackstone River Valley, in the Blackstone River Valley, for both residents and people who come here to visit. The Heritage Corridor has developed a tremendous sense of pride in the valley, and has also worked with multiple partners. And so everybody's boat has risen thanks to the Heritage Corridor. But I'd like to talk about one specific event, spectacular event that took place 20 years ago called Expedition 2000, which was a 4-day paddling trip down the Blackstone. 30 of us, core paddlers, did this with a lot of support from the Heritage Corridor. But we started just upriver from here. We're in the Blackstone Gateway Park in Worcester, and what you see behind me is the Middle River. So about half a mile upstream is where we began our 4-day paddle. And we camped along the river, had fireside town meetings. In the evenings, we had events throughout the day to really bring attention to the river and to learn from folks what issues they felt the river was facing and what they thought that the river was so wonderful for and about. But what it did, it showed us how much love there is for this river. And through that, we realized the energy that was within the valley, and so we created the Blackstone River Coalition. And the coalition has worked with many others and with other local watershed groups to work on water quality issues in particular. And we created the Campaign for Fishable, Swimmable Blackstone River. But what this has done, it has helped us and many others understand what a watershed is. A watershed is a natural system. It's the land area that drains various water bodies and waterways. So the Blackstone River watershed is vast. It encompasses maybe, I think, 30 communities. The Heritage Corridor has 25 communities in it, but the watershed dissolves the state boundaries and the town boundaries. So it just helps folks understand that the river knows no boundaries. And so it's a good lesson for all of us to help work together. The corridor has been just amazing in all of their work with partnerships and their focus on the river, on our history, on our culture. And we're just so grateful to the National Park Service for the support that they have given to the Heritage Corridor. And we wish the National Park Service another 104 years.
On this Founders Day in 2020, we not only celebrate the 104th anniversary of the National Park Service, but we also want to recognize the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote, something Abigail Uplit worked so hard to achieve. Hi, I'm Abigail Uplit, and I'm a volunteer with Blackstone Heritage Corridor, working with the National Park Service. Today I just am at the Friends Meeting House in Uxbridge, Massachusetts, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Abby Kelly Foster, a human rights activist in the mid-19th century. Now, Abby Kelly, as a child, went to this very meeting house. Like a lot of Quakers in her day, she was passionate about human rights, which included abolition, women's rights, and universal suffrage, giving everyone the right to vote. Let's see where Suzanne could be today.
Hey, thanks, Abigail. This is Suzanne at Slatersville. As a volunteer coordinator, there's so many opportunities to volunteer throughout the National Park Service of the Blackstone River Valley National Historical Park. But I'd also like to tell you we're celebrating Founders Day, but also the 50th anniversary of the Volunteers in Parks program. So with that, I ask you to take a look around, Come enjoy and celebrate the rich heritage that we have within the Heritage Corridor. And with every party, not only do you need cake, but how about an activity? So if you've been following us, we have coloring pages. And let's take a look. Pretty good for staying in the lines. Yes, these are all available for you to download. And what a better spot than right here, checking out the mill, as the mill sees rebirth. No longer is it a working textile mill. Today people call this home. So with that, we invite you to continue to celebrate Founders Day, enjoy some coloring time, and explore the Blackstone River Valley.
Thank you, Suzanne. It is always tough to follow cake, especially your delicious homemade cake. But we're wrapping up our virtual celebration of Founders Day back here at the old Slater Mill National Historic Landmark. We're here for two reasons. The first is to tell you a little bit about our safety-oriented, socially distanced, outdoor-only interpretation that we're doing here at the Slater Mill in cooperation with the Old Slater Mill Association. We also have our outdoor interp at Kelly House in cooperation with the Blackstone River Valley State Park staff and the Department of Environmental Management, and at the Donna Williams National Memorial. We hope to have this going every Thursday through Sunday for a few hours at each of the sites, weather and staff levels permitting. So please check our park websites and Facebook for the times. We'd love to see you out here if you feel comfortable doing so. The second reason we're here is to talk to you about the future of the National Park Service in the Blackstone River Valley. We at the Blackstone River Valley National Historical Park will continue to work with our great partners, the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor, the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council, and so many others, to continue to bring you excellent programming and interpret the history of our amazing valley. While we do that, we are also working in cooperation with the Old Slater Mill Association to accept the donation of the Old Slater Mill National Historic Landmark District to the National Park Service and our Blackstone River Valley National Historical Park. We hope it goes through because my staff and I are so excited to be able to continue the amazing legacy, 100-year legacy of the Old Slater Mill Association in doing exceptional preservation and passionate public interpretation of what is truly an American treasure here on the banks of the Blackstone River in the city of Pawtucket. On behalf of the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor, the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council, the Old Slater Mill Association, and the Blackstone River Valley National Historical Park, I wish to thank you for joining us today with our virtual celebration of the National Park Service's Founders Day. We wish you well, and we hope to see you again soon, either online or in person, at one of our interesting historical sites, our culturally rich communities, or our amazing recreational opportunities. Take good care.